That the zonal public hearings of the House of Representatives on the review of the Constitution commences tomorrow. That's Tuesday across the country, except for Imo and Abia states, which perhaps due to the security situation in Imo State on Sunday has been postponed indefinitely. We shall be looking at the issues up for amendment and, of course, the demands made by the Nigerians and Nigerians in different parts of the world. Joining us at this time is a member of the House of Reps, Serguis Oguns. Good to have you here with us.
Good to have you too.
Also joining us virtually is another member of the House of Representatives, Chris Azubogu. Chris, good to see you.
It's my pleasure having you.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Well, I think I'll start with you, Honorable Chris. First of all, I'm sure you've seen a lot of the comments and the considerations when it comes to the Constitution review. Some are for the fact that we need a new Constitution entirely, and some are saying, let's review, what brought us together to even have a Constitution. Was it a people's Constitution in the first place? Looking at true federalism, fiscal federalism, and amongst others, especially looking at local government autonomy, and again, you're looking at the issue of the separatist and secession demand by different categories of the members of the state. So how do you look at today's Constitution? Are you for the fact that we should have an entirely new Constitution, or is a constitutional review in order?
Thank you very much. Most of the challenges we're having now are aftermath of non-adoption of what happened in Constitutional Amendment of 2014. A lot of effort was made, and you can see genuinely that there's a genuine need in the country to have the document holding us together as our grand norm, for us to look at it and amend some of them, because nothing is static in life. Constitutionally, Nigeria is framed in such a manner that we must coexist, but there must be a grand norm that will guide us. And what we are operating now, you can see, with our democracy evolving and so many things getting being done differently, there is need for us to amend some aspects of the Constitution. You mentioned key areas of true federalism, fiscal federalism, autonomy, local government autonomy. All these things are things that are put in place, but they are not enforced. If we are, and that's why we have to look at why are they not? Is it fault from our Constitution or our inability to follow the rules? So, but I can tell you, there is need on both sides for us to amend the Constitution and also ensure that we enforce the rule of law.
But in terms of, you've spoken quite keenly on the fact that we have these policies, these considerations in place, but there's lack of implementation. However, some people would also argue that some of the parts or sections of the Constitution need to entirely be deleted or reviewed entirely. For instance, like I mentioned earlier about the local government administration, there is a recommendation that Section 3, subsection 6, 7, 162, subsection 5 needs to go to be able to give unfettered opportunity to local government administration to prosper, and look away from having money sent through the state to the local government authorities and directly to the local government itself. Do you not see that as also a viable argument?
In aspect of the local government, like you mentioned, as the third tier of government in the country, it's recognized that it is the government that will be closest to the common people. But looking at the viability of some of them, that's why they have something like a joint local government account with the state, JAC. And most state governments are now living on it. It becomes difficult for them to win themselves of that, because the result of local government is quite many. Number one, if you devolve the powers to local government alone and they should take care of the primary school, and if you come to primary school administration in the whole state, the state administers primary school through the state primary school board, paying salaries of local government, primary school teachers and local government workers become local government responsibility. If you do it that way without defining the lines, like their pension and everything, it becomes difficult, and that's why you create a lacuna. The Constitution has a lacuna whereby local government, it's good to say autonomy, but there are joint responsibility between the state and local government. How do we take care of it, especially primary school teachers and pensioners and local government workers? Once you can define it, instead, if you do not do it well, it becomes difficult. That's why states can hold on to it But we know that we in National Assembly, that without number, are insisting that there must be autonomy for local government system. And so we must, if we must, then unless we have to extract those responsibility that could cause problem for us, especially administration of local government, primary school management, payment of salaries of primary school teachers principally, and pensions, joint pensions. So once those lines are defined, local government must supposed to have autonomy so that they can act on the development and act in governance, to provide governance to the local government at that level, because they have a lot of responsibilities at that level, and they must be responsible for that. But presently, as it stands, local government is not functioning in the country.
All right. Azubogu, just stand by with us. We'll be back with you in a moment. Serguis here in the studio. Serguis Oguns is a member of the House of Reps. The Middle Belt and Southern leaders met in Abuja yesterday, and still talking about the Constitution, which, like Chris said, is a ground norm that defines Nigeria and its citizens. It says there's nothing to amend. That's what the group is saying. There's nothing absolutely to review in this 1999 Constitution. That what the country needs now is to bring people together from all over the place, or perhaps look back at the documents that have been, produced already based on conversations which Nigerians have had to produce a brand new constitution with a template of the 1963 Republican Constitution as a reference point. Your thoughts on this? Let's start from there.
Well, this is a democracy where everybody has a voice, and in our Constitution is a shrine. You have freedom of speech. So everybody's correct, but how do we make it happen? So if we are talking about the 1963 Constitution, we are talking about the confab of 2014. Now we have the Constitutional Review Committee in place. I'm representing my state there. We're supposed to be in Imo, travel, I think today or so. Bring all this to the review committee. Because you have Section 4, Section 8, and Section 9 of the present 1999 Constitution as amended. Gives the National Assembly the power to review the Constitution. So what we are doing is legal. So, but if you must have a conversation around it, come with your memoranda to the public hearing. That's what it's called, public hearing. Everybody, stakeholders, everybody, let's rub minds. So if we, at the end of the day, we agree that if we aggregate the totality of what you have brought and it's not working, we will come back with our recommendation that, look, the Constitution is not working. But if you ask me, these same ethnic groups that are meeting right now, the suggestion is bring them together. Let them be the ones to decide on the new Constitution. But how did we arrive at the 1999 Constitution? Are they not the same people? These are the same ethnic groups. But in any case, they say every ethnic group.
Well, when you say the same ethnic groups brought the 1999 Constitution, how is that the case?
Oh, okay, we had a draft Constitution Committee.
Yes.
Selected people came from various constituencies. Today you have elected me. So my people, the Esan people, are represented in the National Assembly.
But you still find the same people who are saying, if you're talking about that draft Constitutional Review Committee of 94-95, which was set up by Abacha at the time, most of the input that were made there did not reflect the thoughts of the people, and still did not reflect what we have in 1919, because the document that we have as 1999 Constitution, the argument by critics has been that, look, we never saw these documents. When the military came in, of course, the Constitution was suspended. And all of a sudden, after the election, the return of democracy in 1999, we saw a document that says, we the people of Nigeria. What time did we the people of Nigeria ever gather to...
Those that congregated, the Constitutional Review Committee or conference, are they not Nigerians? They are Nigerians. Even the 1979 Constitution said, we the people of Nigeria.
Yes.
So the 1999...
And that was a fallout of the Constitutional Conference that held before then.
The 1999 Constitution is an amendment on the 1979 Constitution. An amendment. It's okay, let's juggle some things. That's what brought about the 1999 Constitution. So, but you see, if we are talking about, say, we the people, if that's the only fault in the 1999 Constitution, then we will remove it.
Not just the only fault, because the faults are numerous.
Okay.
We are talking about the key among the issues raised and challenged in this Constitution, the fact that the content does not reflect the federal system, the diversity that Nigeria as a nation state is, and the federal system that is supposed to bring the country together and forge a united front forward.
Now you are talking. So we have a unitary constitution.
Yes.
governing a federal
System.
state. Yes, federal system. You have federative states coming cap in hand to the federal, to the center. So if part of the amendment is that let us practice true federalism, we will understand. My own take is let's do piecemeal. The president we have today and the party in government are not ready to do anything. In 2018, before the 2019 election, they set up a true federalism committee and made a recommendation along these lines: devolution of power, state police, true federalism. Then we went into the 2019 election. Maybe you guys voted for them to come back, or they rigged it. That's water under the bridge right now. 2 years into this administration, they haven't done anything about it. That's what we ought to be talking about. Because if they had even implemented that, or they had presented that to the National Assembly by now, would have made, there should be mileage. But nothing has been done on that. So my own take is not just a case of go and elect people or go and select people. We'll go back to where we came from before. There's no legitimacy there. The legitimacy today is that you have elected the National Assembly. Unless we are saying the people in the National Assembly, we did not elect them. There's a danger there. If you didn't elect the National Assembly, the president election was held the same day with the National Assembly. You also did not elect the president. So we ought to be talking about the electoral act then. A system that will bring truly elected people, not talking about amendment of the Constitution.
All right, let's look at, go back to Honorable Chris. Honorable Chris, I know you've listened to what Honorable Serguis has said here in the studio, you know, talking about the right to the people, people having a voice to come together, to look at the Constitution. The Nigerian Constitution was ratified over 22 years ago and counting, and you're looking at a Constitution at the moment that still looks at power domiciled at the center, because of course we're still looking at unitary, you know, implementation of power here. However, in terms of reviewing, because I hear restructuring in a lot of the conversations, looking at the restructuring conversation from both the South, you know, South, you know, leaders and the Southeast and other members of the Nigerian populace. But looking at the Constitution itself, he has said that it is not as if we don't have a document, but, you know, we're also looking at how we have used that document, the process of implementation. But is that enough? Do you not think there is more to this conversation than just reviewing the, you know, Constitution? Restructuring comes to bear each time we have these conversations because of, you know, the lack of equality, you know, amongst, you know, states, the issue of marginalization, and the issue of lack of access, you know, to use mineral resources within the states who have the power to do so. How do you look at this?
Thank you very much. These are the things that are in the core of the discussion and conversation, devolution of power, because the center is not able to handle the needs of the people, and most of the powers are concentrated at the center, making it look as if it's too unitary for us to manage and govern people. And we know fully well that Nigeria is very diverse. And to get government closer to the people, you need to devolve power to the federating units, presently the states and the local government. And that is what is at the bone of contention now. I can tell you reliably that what we are all asking for, and everybody is talking about, is looking critically at the Constitution. If you look at it, a lot of things that are on the exclusive list are not meant to be on the exclusive list. And because there's conflict on it, the ones that are on concurrent lists, where we can have some powers for states, it's not fully implemented. People are looking more at the exclusive list. And when we talk of restructuring, so that it will give access to people, create sense of equity, social justice and fairness, so that governance will touch people. People will develop at their own pace. Take for instance, if you want to centralize policies that involves health, education, even security, that are very unique and peculiar with our environment, without giving people power to do it at a particular smaller unit, and you want to concentrate at the center, it becomes difficult. Take for instance, policing. The way to best police Borno State is not the best way to police River State. So these are some of the things we need to consider. Having concentration of power at the center makes it more difficult to control the system, and that's why even response time to challenges are more difficult. So we must devolve powers.
Honorable Chris,
and that's what people are talking about restructuring.
Absolutely. Still staying with you on that thought, because you said something really critical. I do know that you're talking about the exclusive list and the concurrent list. I do know that the 1963 Constitution had about 45 items on the exclusive legislative list and 29 items on the concurrent list, which actually made for weaker centers and strong regions, at the back then. And, Utibe mentioned something earlier about perhaps the call to review and go back to the 1963, Constitution to take some modulation from it could be a way to go, considering the fact that that Constitution helped the multi-ethnic configuration of Nigeria as of that time and brought the buy-in of every interested region and group.
Sure, because if you look at what happened that time, the regions were economically stronger because they had more powers to drive the economic development instead of concentrating power at the center and weakening the regions or the component parts of the country of the federation. So everybody coming cap in hand at the center to beg for resources isn't good. We won't have a lot of potentials. So that's why we need to devolve powers, especially strengthen all those things that are on concurrent list. The economy, education policy, health policy, economic policies. These are things that we cannot concentrate at the center. And even both issue of natural resources. We have to look at best way to partner with the regions or the states to harness the resources available in a very transparent and honest manner. What we're talking for, what people are looking for better question and complain about is lack of sense of equity, social justice and fairness. And once you have it integrated in the system, I think Nigeria will make a better progress. We'll see ourselves better and work together. But when some people feel dominated or feel that there are second classes in the nation, or even presently as it stands, the so-called federal character is not working. For me as a person, I don't believe in it. We should scrap it. If we want to believe on merit on issues, well, we have to devolve things and drive merit instead of mediocrity. There are so many aspects of the Constitution that needs to be handled. I can tell you reliably that as of today, I don't believe and trust in the issue of federal character because it does not exist in the country.
It doesn't exist, or it is not properly implemented.
There's no balance in appointment. There's no balance in most of the things we are doing.
So what you're saying is, the point you should make is there's a violation of the federal character principle. Not that it's not in existence. It's in existence in terms of legislation, but it's not implemented by the government of the day.
Alienated, yeah.
All right. So
right, I can say that.
Great.
Because if you say that federal character, it doesn't show in most of the things we do. There's no balance in those things. So people are complaining, and people are giving a sense of inequity. And this is causing a lot of resistance. People complain of things, and there is not. Yeah.
And that would take Nigerians back to the conversation of what the National Assembly, like people like you, are doing, because most of these nominations made by the executive or the head of the executive, the presidency, comes through you in the National Assembly. What have you done about it? Why do you allow
it? In the past, we have worked seriously for the 2014 amendment, and because it was not, it looks a bit frustrating. Now we've tried again for 2019. 2018 amendment, but that one didn't go at all. But now that we are in it again, most of the things that we are talking about are things that have been said before. We'll see how it's going to come back. But we're going around the country now, as National Assembly, picking up documents. Then, for instance, something that used to be very funny. Before we could secure some level of autonomy for state assembly, most of the state assemblies that will concur to what National Assembly does, or did, or will do, find it difficult to do so. We need two-thirds of the state assemblies to concur with what the National Assembly will do before it can become a law. But how do we go about it? These are the issues we're having with the local government autonomy, and some other places they find it difficult. So the processes for us to amend Constitution is not always the challenges we have at the center. The National Assembly might go around and get things done, but when it gets to component parts of the nation to agree with it, like the state assemblies to concur with it, now that we are meeting stakeholders, you can see things are cropping up, but conversation is ongoing. National Assembly will do her part, but National Assembly alone cannot amend the Constitution. It requires a concurrence from the two-thirds of the state assemblies to get it done. So as we continue, everybody is seeing what is happening, the country is experiencing some difficulty, and for anybody to say that things are too normal now, things are not normal. So if this is part of the things we need to do, be decisive and take the right decision so that we can move our nation forward.
Maybe we'll just flow from take a brief diversion to the aspect I wanted you to address, Chris, which you actually didn't address properly. I mean, you talked about the non-implementation of the federal character principle, for instance, in government, and it's actually an act of parliament. Why is that the case? My direct question is, the National Assembly has responsibilities to screen and either accept or reject nominees sent by the executive to it. I know most of the time they don't come to you, House of Reps, but they go before the Senate. I'm sure you have your colleagues there who share the same sentiment which you have, but at the end of the day, nobody knows whether it's Senate or House of Reps. The National Assembly is what they think about. Why is it that these nominees that fail the character principle are still allowed to sail through?
You can really see why people are talking of constitutional amendment. There's so much concentration of powers at the center, and some of the things you cannot query. Even if you come to the National Assembly, a National Assembly as structured, most people will feel that it's not too fair. I come from Southeast. My zone, we have only 43 House of Rep members. Other zones have, some of them have ×2 or more than 1.5. So it's not that we cannot drive at no point in time we will say that if we are standing for anything that we can easily win.
All right.
So these are the imbalances we are talking about.
Okay, let's come back here to
the 43 members in the House of Rep.
All right.
But when you're talking of appointments, appointments are exclusive to Mr. President, and approvals or authorization to the Senate. I cannot say much about that one. I can't ask or answer direct questions on that about what passes because it doesn't come to my purview.
All right.
You can make comments about it, but powers, we have shared responsibilities.
Okay.
Appointments I won't because I'm talking of the appointments coming, but those who are guided by the appointments should have looked at it before they bring the appointment. Not I want my to present. Do you qualify for this for them to do? They were authorized. But what I'm saying is that to the common man on the street, people that we represent, because I represent people, it's not me talking. People I represent are complaining that there is inequity.
All right, Chris, I'll have to come in here. I'll have to come in here to come back to the studio. Honorable Serguis, you've heard him. He said there are some things that he cannot query, or that the National Assembly cannot query. But is this National Assembly in the first place not created to be the voice of the common man, to query some of those considerations before they come into law?
And check the powers of the executive.
And check the powers.
I want to disagree a bit with my ranking leader there, Honorable Azubogu. Like you said, the Senate will screen the nominees before the appointment. And yeah, granted, probably the way the country is structured, you have more members of House of Rep from the north than you have from the south. But in the Senate is equal, 3 for every state. Now, we complain about the service chiefs. Even this, when you are screening the service chiefs, you have a committee made up of some members of the House of Rep for the screening. So we could have raised our voices there to say, look, this is not acceptable, or we decline. But even the federal character we are talking about, section 14, sub 3 and 4, clearly you can take up issues with the commission, federal character commission. That's where the problem really is. Has anybody gone to court to say, look, there's imbalance here? Nobody has said that. So each time we come back and say, just go away with this constitution, we want a brand new one. The issue is not so much of a brand new one. Like most people will say, those that colonized us, the UK, they don't have even written laws. They work with conventions. So, do you need a constitution to tell you to drive on the wrong side of the road? We have enough laws in this country. Like I said, if we have the rule of law in this country, somebody can go to court to say, look, my own part of the country is not represented here. Now, you have federal institutions cited in different parts of the country. Take a look at it. I will tell you this because I'm a member of the Federal Character Committee in the House, in the last House and in this House. You have almost 80% of the people employed, either by the head of that institution, from his tribe. And then you have, and then they will tell you, well, what do you call it now? People around that area. But you have senior staff that should go around the country. It's not happening. Nobody's taking that up.
Honorable State, let me come in here, because I do know that this constitutional review is an opportunity for us to rethink our political system and bring a constitution that is for the people and works for all Nigerians. However, from what you have said, do you think that, you know, that the members of the political class, both those who are at the National Assembly and the executive, do you think that they are more interested about national interest rather than primordial interest?
Well, yeah, you might be correct, but the people driving this conversation right now are not actually the elected people. They are not really the politicians. Maybe the ethnic groups. And that's why I'm saying, let's talk about the issues at stake here. You see, Section 2 is not justiciable. Then you talk about the Section 14, the federal character. These are things that can be taken care of. What have you done about it? Have you gone to court to sue the system to say, look, this is not right?
But even if you go to court, the court will make a declaratory pronouncement.
But let's start first. We are not doing that. It's not enough to just complain. Okay, I tell you now, we'll bring a brand new constitution. You think you just solve all our problems? Nigerians will like high-sounding things. Throw away this constitution, bring another one. Where were we when we had the 1979 constitution and then this 1999 constitution?
I think the question should rather be, what are the comparative advantage of the 1963 constitution, which the agitation is for now, and the 1979-1999 constitution, which we have at the moment?
Nostalgia.
I don't think it's practically about nostalgia, because there were fundamental aspects and section provisions in that constitution that address some of the core challenges the country is facing at the moment. We mentioned earlier a weak center, stronger regions. A stronger region such that many people were not really keen about being the head of government at the center. They were interested in being in their zones because there was everything they needed in their zone. Ditto with citizens of that region. They didn't. The rural-urban drift didn't really exist because things were provided and addressed there at the regions. So that's a key issue. That's a key aspect which has to do with the economy, which is a superstructure, forms the superstructure of the society.
I'm not saying 100% in support of this constitution, but the government we have in place today, I can tell you they are not ready to lift a finger. We succeeded in stampeding Jonathan into having that confab in 2014 because he was going to run in 2015 election. But this president is going to go home to Adora, so he's not even keen. So if we're ever saying anything right now, since the National Assembly has the powers to review this constitution, we should be pushing for things. Let's do piecemeal. Can we get true federalism? If you get that into the system today, true federalism, devolution of power, fiscal federalism, they are all the same thing that we are saying. State police, by the time you allow the federated states to generate their resources and pay tax to the center, they will have money to pay the state police they are talking about. If we can do that today, some of the injustices will be addressed. But if we are just saying, give us a brand new constitution, this present government, as is constituted today, will not do anything. So let's get the piecemeal you can get first. If in the next 2 years or by the time we have the next election, some of these injustices have been addressed by these amendments, you discover the agitations might come down. Number one is the injustice. That's what people are just complaining about.
A key point in the injustice is the lack of balance. You talked about the numbers in the House of Reps, for instance, where, you know, from the northern region you have more members than the southern region, and that's reflective of constituencies, that's reflective of number of local governments, which is imbalanced, and even reflective of states. For instance, the southeast has 5 states, and you go to the northwest, you see 7. You go to other regions, you see 6. I mean, this is an imbalance in the first place. How do you now form a cohesive unit in the National Assembly, in the House of Reps, for instance, to pass a law that would be, you know, beneficial to people from the southern region, for instance?
I can tell you, if we can compel APC to implement that true federalism document that they have brought out, it will address some of these things. Somebody will tell you, some years ago, Lagos and Kano, they had 20 local governments. But today, you created Jigawa from Kano. Combined, both states have about 70-something local government.
With Kano alone with 44 local governments, and Lagos here with 20-something.
20. Okay. Now, the money servicing these local governments coming straight from the federal. Then you talk about almost 50% of the VAT that you share in this country comes from that same Lagos that you have not expanded, and it goes to every part of this country. These are perceived.
That's injustice.
Exactly. But what we are saying, by the time you have true federalism, most of these things will change.
But Oguns, I just looked at the thematic areas which form the basis for submission of memoranda before the the Constitution Amendment Committee, which happened September, October last year. That was the period of submission of memoranda, and creation of states wasn't included. Neither was creation of local government. What I see here was gender equality for women and girls, federal structure, power devolution, local government and its autonomy, public revenue, fiscal federation and revenue allocation, police, devolution of powers, and Nigerian security architecture, as well as judicial reforms. Nothing on state police, nothing on local government creation.
They are there. And you can even see submits today.
In your, which memoranda was that?
Yeah, okay. You know, we received memoranda from stakeholders. What the House received...
Were there no-go areas?
No. You can discuss anything. Like I'm telling you, you can still submit one today. But I'm letting you know what we have now.
So why is it that they announced that there was a closure of memoranda as of September, October last year?
Yes, so that we can process even the bills. We have brought bills for amendments.
Yes.
They say we can still bring the bills today. But most of the ones considered so far, they form the bulk of the agenda that we're going to discuss. Now you also have to align it with what the Senate has received. You know, so basically state creation is there. But what? Well, that's the topic for another day discussion.
On the research, just staying with you, you would also agree that population is central to political power. And that's exactly what we have reviewed here in terms of the skewed numbers in the National Assembly. And again, it takes us back to the census. When was the last census conducted in Nigeria? I think as far back as 2006 or counting. And looking at the Constitution review right now, do you think that Nigerians will even have faith in the process of the Constitution review, considering the fact that, one, we have mentioned the lack of political will in some areas. Secondly, we are also looking at the ethnic considerations by different parts. That was why I asked you, do you think that in all entirety this is more about national interest or primordial interest? And I come back to that question again, because again, we're looking at population, we're looking at instrument lines, we're looking at federal character. Do you think that there is a political will to lean more on national interest for the benefit of all Nigerians than on ethnic sentiments and primordial interests?
Well, if you take your mind back to the First Republic, it's all been ethnic,
and even pre-independence as well.
Yeah, pre-independence. So if we know this is who we are, maybe that's why the agitation for true federalism should be paramount in our minds right now. Everybody should be, because if we have a lean center like we have always said, and then you allow the power to go to the state, and then you get the state to manage even the local government. People don't agree with this. They say, okay, right now they're not doing well. When the power goes to the state, everybody will go back to their states. Now the governors are briefing stakeholders in their state. This is how much I'm receiving from FAC because it's gone down. Please, I need your approval to either collect more tax or to increase tax. Governors are having that conversation right now with stakeholders in their states. So if the power goes there, people will engage with governors. If you let me know that my local government chairman gets $500 million every month, I will interrogate what he's doing with it. People say, don't just give them the money, they won't do anything. No, they will. Because we know how much. When you send money to the local government, they say, okay, they have a joint account with the state government. We don't know how much is coming to the local government. There's little or nothing I can do. Unless I have to sign a petition to ask how much came to my local government this month. But if I know all this upfront, I will begin to ask, how come the road to my farm or the road to my house is not hard? How come the road leading to my community is not hard? This is how much you receive. You will ask questions. So we just sit down there and say, okay, the challenge is that today, let's reduce the power at the center. The fight to become the president of Nigeria will come down. People will be fighting more to become governors and local government chairmen. And that's where the development will come from. So I go back again to what I said earlier on. Let's do piecemeal for now. We might get the necessary traction from doing piecemeal. Then if we are not still satisfied with that, we say, okay, we must go back to regions. We can always have that debate.
But how come we also have admission into federal schools and into MDAs lowered, in terms of qualifications for the North, and then higher qualifications for certain parts of the country? How come we have that as well?
It's part of what we have. My leader, my ranking leader there has said, Chris Azubogu, is the injustice in the system. But by the time you begin to have true federalism, who really cares about that? That you have a federal institution. Who cares? Even the bloated civil service we are talking about today is okay. All the permanent secretaries, directors are from a certain part of the country. That will come down. They will have to move some of those people to their states. That will come down drastically. So because you don't have too much power in the center. They won't even have too much money. So what do we really want? I just think people are mimicking what somebody has said. Oh, let's trash this constitution. It's not working. Everybody, we like new things. Throw away Jonathan. He was vilified and all. Jonathan has been away for like the past 6 years. we're even in a worse situation today.
All right. I think that's how much we have time for. Chris, unfortunately, we can't come back to you, but we want to say thank you so much for your thoughts so far. Chris Azubogu is a member of the House of Reps.
Thank you.
And of course, Serguis Oguns was a member of the House of Reps as well. You said your public hearing in Imo has been postponed. When any date or time?
No, not for now.
Okay. All right, safety first. Thank you so much for your time.